you are losing money every single month.
How long this has been happening, and if you're not wise to it, like, you're gonna get left behind because now it's more accessible than it's ever been.
A lot of things that we've learned in the last 10, 15 years that I wish if I knew this structure and this ladder, I would be completely a different business owner today.
It was like 2 or 3 different things that maybe you were using it for to help the company make more money.
Yeah, and I think that's the starting point of
because if you do the right strategy in the wrong order, it is the wrong strategy.
Every big business has been tracking customer data since the beginning of time. And then they all decided, all right, now there's new ways to do it.
Here's the 3, 4 things that Gabriel, you, front of house, are going to use this thing for, which was completely different than...
If you want to have a team that's going to scale your business and see the future, then you have to have some type of CRM platform.
It doesn't matter if we have 1 million leads in our CRM. If none of them are conversing or engaging with us, it doesn't matter.
Where you want to be in 3 to 5 years, you go through this process of building the vision, right?
You have to have a list. You have to have a Rolodex. You have to have...
It is definitely not a sexy word, but I'll tell you.
Essentially 5 systems that make up of the overall acquisition system, and it has 2 jobs.
You've identified what works, right? And then you're basically saying...
And they realize how valuable that was, because they're like...
We started a 20-city tour doing 20,000 guests a year, and we figured it out.
Regardless of how long you've been in the game, it has nothing to do with time. It has all to do about...
It's not about the people that are just going to buy. It's like, what are they interested in? What do they want?
You want to make it easy for people to engage.
We thought that that was enough.
Well, there's some very basic things just in standard retail that you're going to want to do. One,
and I think that's one of the most important parts, is that
it's the exact same thing as not having the systems in your business to be able to...
How much money did they lose from not having her in the last 10 years?
Target got smart about it. They didn't stop doing this, but what they started doing was...
They understand who their customer is, right?
Only reason I was able to do that is because...
And if they trust you on the sauce, they're probably going to trust you on the pizza.
Your ads and your other strategies are working, but the question is how much money are you leaving on the table?
Every time I spend 7, I make 3.
It, in the new economy, makes your business and brand valuable.
What we can do to grow and scale our business, right?
You might be doing well enough to drive a profit because...
Build something strong, and then...
so much goes up.
I want to hit the market so hard with influencers and ad spend that we own the market overnight.
If you have something in every single one of those and it's working well, your business is cranking.
If you do that, your business is going to go up constantly versus sideways when you take your eyes off it for a minute.
And then putting these things in the right order to help you get there the fastest. I freaking love it. Amazing. So Brady, before we hopped on today, you were sharing some things with me, and it got me thinking of kind of going back to the beginning. I don't know about you. Anytime I do a home project, and I've done a couple of these things where every once in a while I want to work with my hands because I'm in front of a computer all the time.
Like home brew? What kind of home project? Building a garage or?
Oh yeah, did this whole French cleat system in my garage this one time because it's better than the stupid pegboard dowels for holding all your tools and stuff. I did a whole media center in our family room one time, and I did not realize how difficult it is to build a square box. But by the end of every single one of those projects, I look back and I go, well, now that I did the project, I know what I needed to know to do the project. And the question I've got for you is, what does that look like in business? If you were to start over, knowing what you know now with your, couple of decades of experience, what would you do differently? What advice would you give to yourself to get started?
It's a great question. I think for me personally, getting into this whole conversation, I would look at what purpose am I serving, right? What problem am I solving? Who am I helping? Is it scalable? Am I going to have to be in the room, turning the lights on and off every day? Is it attractive to someone else to purchase it? Is it going to be valuable to someone else? Or am I just starting something that's a vanity idea that has no value to another purchaser, except for a series of widgets that I can only understand are kind of be my end goal? So I think I would be so much more inquisitive about like what I'm doing versus just hot on an idea, chase it to the oven, hope it bakes, and then try again, you know? So, but I think there's a lot of different ways. So
That's
what
some of
about
that.
you?
That's
Like,
some of that, like below the surface stuff, right? Because I know like a framework that we know works, and I think that's slowing down.
well, what about you? Like, where would you be? Like, what would you do? Like, if you were to go back and grab something, like, what would you need to, when you start over,
Oh
to
yeah,
go back to your future self or to your past self from
in
your future
the
self?
past self to future self, we're going back to the future.
Time tunnel. Yeah. You've got the time warp today, Gabe. You got a piece of
Yeah.
paper and you can go back and say something to yourself 20 years ago.
Which, by the way, now that my oldest is 16, it's getting pretty awesome to share some of these things with him. He's gotten way into the Back to the Future trilogy, and we get to debate on which one's better, and interrupting the space-time continuum. So, barring this is not going to shred a wormhole in the middle of the space-time continuum, I would, similarly, probably do the same kind of thing where I would get inquisitive and really ask myself, like, what is the business that I want to create and build? So one, what's the problem we're going to solve? What's the hole in the market that we're going to fill, whether it's a physical product and we're going to go up against other products vying for market share, or it's doing something new. But really I would look at what's the problem I'm looking to solve, who am I looking to serve? That probably be the most important thing. And then other than that, like, what's the kind of business that I want to build? Because I think in my younger years, I was really doing things by default because I felt like I had to, or everyone else did things a certain way. So I was like, oh, like this is how you do it. So if everybody, fills their calendar with meetings and team and all this stuff, I have to do that too. Where now I would really look at and have, especially in my current business, like, what's the business that I want to run and own? And is it one where, to your point, it would actually have some equitable, like, value to, like, would someone want to buy it? And if I'm in the trenches pulling all the levers, doing all the things, it's probably not a business that someone's going to want to buy. And also, it's not a business that I really want to own. I would much rather, like, tinker on the business as, like, it's the idea of, we build, as entrepreneurs, we build the system builds the business. I would much rather do it in that way. If I were starting a restaurant, sure, I'd want to be in there in the trenches from day one with the staff, help cultivate the experience, the menu, the design of the restaurant, all of that stuff. But I'd want to be able to do that to a point to where eventually, like, I could step outside and watch that thing still hum and crank amazing experiences and cash without me having to be involved, so that I could be selective and be like, hey, it's a Thursday night. Yeah, I'm gonna come in and hop in on the line, or like I'm gonna come in and greet tables, whatever for that night, or but without having to. So I get really really crystal clear on the business that I'd want to create, not just feeling like, oh, I have to do this because everyone else does.
Yeah, and I think you laid it up there nicely. I would want to paint my lifestyle out very clearly. I want to see like where I'm going to be at what time I go to bed, who I'm hanging out with, what's my friendship circle look like, what's my influencer circle look like, and where do I want to be in the rooms, and which rooms I'm not into, how much would it cost? Like it's a whole different thing that we know now. But I think what's interesting that you're saying is, like, I think we're both saying the same thing without saying it, which brings up this idea of this ladder of from ideation to market dominance. How do you get there? Which is the big question, right? Like, if you have a great idea and you can't go back in time and throw yourself a Hermosi 100 million offers book and basically like steal it, 20 years in the future, like, you have to figure out, you want to go from idea to market dominance. And I think there's a lot of things that we've learned in the last, 10, 15 years that I wish, if I knew this structure and this ladder, I would be completely a different business owner today, probably an empire runner, and basically living the lifestyle that I dreamed of versus the one that I work for. And I think let's talk about the framework, right?
Yeah. So once you have that idea, so like that's the stuff that we had just talked about, which is like, okay, like now we've got the blueprint. We know what we want to create, what we want that to look like. Like then what? How do we actually make that once we've got
So
the
let's
idea?
let's say it's a restaurant, let's say a CPG product, let's say a handbag, let's say a winery, right? Let's just use four different. First, you'd have a great idea. You would figure out what your North Star looks like, where you want to be in 3 to 5 years. You'd go through this process of building the vision, right? I call it the North Star method. I got lucky enough to be exposed to that early on, and that's proved to help me in moments of unclear to be clear. And so, 3 to 5, maybe 10-year vision outlay. What kind of life do you want to live? Where do you want to put your business? Location, location, location. Is it brick and mortar? Is it online? Right? So now you've got problems to solve. You have your USP, whatever your unique selling proposition is to your customer base. Who is your dream 100? And then you break into building and getting that first product on the table for you to touch, feel, and sell, right? And then I think that is the part which I would call the under the ground. That's your foundation. Like if you build a house, and you want to have a basement, you got to finish the basement. Otherwise, it looks like you always have a house with an unfinished basement. So if you're going to build a basement, you didn't build it just to be a root cellar unless that was the intention, and then you have a root cellar. But if it's built on top of your house is built on top of a basement, typically you want to have a nice finished basement. Maybe a game room, maybe a bedroom, storage, maybe your cars are down there, whatnot, right? A bar, entertainment, etc. We've seen the difference between a house with a great basement.
Yeah, I mean, you see it all the time when they have like big new developments. They're putting one downtown where we're at, which it's kind of hard to do because we live in kind of a historic town. There's a lot of protection around different buildings and things, right? But there's this kind of lot that was carved out that previously was just a big grocery store. And they have been digging holes and trucks going in and out of this place for, it feels like over a year now. It's probably been like 14, 15 months. And they've just started to put in some of that infrastructure. And it's crazy because like a week later, like so much goes up because they spent all that time in the foundation, right? I mean, I can only imagine the drawings and planning and all that, and then the excavation. So that's what you're talking about with on the business side, which is like, okay, like let's get a solid plan idea. Let's make sure we don't build ourselves into a corner, something that we end up hating.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this really gets into ideation of your concept, vision, what your team's going to look like, how you're going to live, what your lifestyle is, what's the expectations of you, the owner of the vision, right? Then you have identity and brand, you have your messaging, positioning, culture, code, what people do, feel, and love about working there. You have the experience, the promise of what happens when you show up to involve yourself in this sales or product process, right? You build all of this identity and this culture out. And then you have that under the ground surface built, right? And then you're like, all right, it's time to put in ground level. And everyone thinks that like, oh my gosh, it's such a great product. I could do that company because they only see the tip of the iceberg. They don't see the years and months of permitting, ideation, funding, all the things that it takes to build that foundation, to get that brick and mortar in place. And they see that first little tiny piece of the iceberg popping up. And that's like, it's real when you can see the first level of the structure going up and you can see the retail now. Or you can see somebody has like the first 6 bottles of the product. They just spent so much time and it's exciting. They got the label shiny on it, So I think let's just call that below ground level, right? I think that's what I consider, what I always thought was like step number 1, like let's get our ground set up. But I didn't ever see it because I was like, well, you need to have a bank account, you need to have a website, and you got to have social media, right? But I never separated the two. So now, knowing what I know now, I would separate the two. If you want to go from that ideation moment to market dominance, the moment that you step out of your foundation work and you go digital, you are breaking ground digitally. And that groundbreaking moment should be as intricate and detailed, filled with training, culture, content, ideation, as you did to get to the first point of the tip of the iceberg, right? And a lot of people, like I failed at that. I'm not going to say I was perfect. I mean, I had, 7, 8 different, 9, 10 different businesses and concepts and websites and Instagrams for all, bank accounts for everything. But it didn't mean I was successful at them. They looked amazing. But today, once I started understanding that we were going to break ground digitally and I went all in, we started a 20-city tour doing 20,000 guests a year. And we figured out, we had a website, we had social media presence, we had PR. So we had these core elements, and we thought that that was enough. And I was getting interest from collaborators, people who want to participate, people who want to learn more, people who want to sponsor, people who want to get involved. And it was coming in at such a rate, I didn't know what to do. I just had spreadsheets all over my table. I was like, spreadsheet guest, spreadsheet sponsor, spreadsheet chef, spreadsheet every vendor type by category broken down. Sometimes it was mixed. Sometimes it was all over the place, right? That
Death by a million spreadsheets.
That's where chaos came in, right? And then I was like, what do I do? How do I organize all this? But I think once you decide, and I think this was a big part, once you decide to get into a digital framework, which almost every business has it, except gas stations, I mean, they're the only ones I don't ever check their Instagram anymore. I got bored of it because they never responded to me, but
Dude,
I was like, hey, bro,
Buc-ee's.
Buc-ee's figured that out. Look at the site.
Unless you're Buc-ee's, Buc-ee's is dominating that game because they're like, oh, none of you guys are going to play in this space, so I'm going to, and they crush.
Buc-ee's got your number, Gabe. There's no doubt about that. They've definitely got our numbers. If you shop there, they know who you are and what your behaviors are. They have they know what you bought. 1,000%. If they need to target you for something or open a new location nearby, they're going to reach out. So the funny thing about that is understanding now that there's this concept of the 4 horsemen, which was never explained to me or never really clear, that once you commit to having a social media presence, once you commit to having a website, and once you commit to building some kind of traffic through PR or ad spend, et cetera, if you don't have a capture device that organizes all those people coming in, that you can basically segment, understand, reach out to, nurture, build that engagement cycle with, you're flat. And that's where a lot of business owners and people I see just kind of never get past that stage of, we have a great product, we have decent social web digital presence, but we're just spread out in spreadsheets. And we want to get to them, but we are so reactionary that we're not planning what next year's messages are, who our best customers are, what our best activities are, et cetera. And I think that's, a place that I'm trying to, always improve and find the next best way to be involved. But I don't know. So I think that's kind of the space that I'm starting to see, is that there's this really important digital layer that, if you wanted to do it, you need something and for me, it was Salesforce. When I was running a 20-city tour and we had 20,000 guests coming through and millions in sponsorships, you need some way to manage agreements, invoices, processes, follow up. And if it's just you and you like spreadsheets, then, but if you want to have a team that's going to scale your business and see the future, then you have to have some type of CRM platform. And that's just basically what is it? Customer relation management, or, and that's the system. It's not a sexy word. It is definitely not a sexy word, but I'll tell you, I was talking with somebody the other day, and we were at a lunch, and he was talking about his company and that they do sales, right? And he's like, the first thing that we look at when we come in and fix people's sales process is what type of CRM they have. Key point being, which CRM do they have? And is it the right one for their business? And then how to optimize that.
Yeah.
And he's like, we uncover so much revenue just by helping people figure out CRM.
Oh.
Like this literally. And I'm like, so it's like people have these things. He's like, absolutely, people have CRM tools. I'm like, really? Like CRM tools are important in your world. He's like, every client has to have one. Like, there's no way around it. And I'm like, so there's half a million people that have CRM tools in businesses. Yeah, the ones who want to grow, the ones who are scaling, the ones who are sitting at the same place and will be next year and 2 years from now are typically the ones who don't have them. And
yeah, 1,000%. Like when I was at Nordstrom, that was kind of one of my first introductions to it. It was called your personal book. So, I had worked in restaurants before. It was my first time working in retail. But after talking with some other friends who were in retail, realized that I thought everybody did this, but Nordstrom did. Most others didn't, unless you're talking about like a boutique shop where you were going there kind of for a personal shopper. But Nordstrom was doing this at scale, and it was called your personal book. And every time I sold a pair of shoes, it was just part of my process to ask, like, hey, is it okay if we stay in touch? Can I would it be okay you ask permission to put the customer in your personal book? And so I, put there, it's essentially the opt-in, which, you see this other times. You see this at the gas station, at the grocery store, like, hey, put your number in here to get the things or whatever. It was the same exact thing, but it was a more like concierge, like personal, like connected kind of process. And even though like we weren't doing all kinds of crazy automations and things, although I'm sure that Nordstrom was using that for some email marketing, but the way that we used it as the front of house staff that was there on the front line selling things before any sale, so anniversary sale would be coming up or the Black Friday sale, I would go in and I would look at my personal book of all the customers and be like, okay, like who am I going to call? Like I'm going to call some people. I'm going to send some thank you cards. Like I'm going to reach out because I know that, like Phil loves Santoni. I was trying to remember the name of the shoe. It wasn't Ferragamo, but like Phil loves Santonis. We are getting in a set of custom handmade Santonis, and I'm going to call him to see like, hey, does he want me to set some of these aside because we've got limited inventory? And even if he says no, the fact that I reached out, we're now top of mind in Phil's brain. And is he more likely to come into Nordstrom? Absolutely. So Nordstrom was genius in how they introduced that. They didn't make it complicated. They could have, but it's like, no, like here's the 3-4 things that Gabriel, you front of house are going to use this thing for, which was completely different than what like the back of house marketing was probably using it for and doing their email campaigns and things, which was also different than what loss prevention was using it for to check and see people who maybe were returning stuff more often than not. And were they going and buying things at flea markets and trying to return them, at Nordstrom? So same system, but depending upon the player that was using it, it was like 2 or 3 different things that maybe you were using it for to help the company make more money.
Yeah, and I think that's the starting point of like how we find CRMs to be responsible for what we can do to grow and scale our business, right? Like I saw it first in a restaurant system where when you checked in, they knew if you were a special customer, a super special customer, or just someone brand new. Either way, when they did it at Pizza Hut, when I worked there when I was 15 or 14 years old, they had the same thing. They knew how many pizzas you ordered by your phone number. And they basically, if you saw somebody with 700 orders, then they got special treatment. And I think every big business has been tracking customer data since the beginning of time. And then they all decided, all right, now there's new ways to do it. Funnels and outreach program, drip matrix nurturing, like sequencing, like that's the trick now. If those are foreign words to you, then you're losing and leaving so much money on the table right now.
Do you know the Target teenage pregnancy story?
No.
Have you heard this one? It's wild. So
as 1,500 people now sign off to the show.
No, this goes to show you, like, again, how long this has been happening. And if you're not wise to it, like, you're going to get left behind, because now it's more accessible than it's ever been. But Target, for a long time, has been tracking our data, because they've got stores all over the place. And you know how you get the coupon mailers in the mail from different stores? Well, this father of a teenager gets a coupon mailer addressed to his daughter. So, right, like sometimes like stuff will show up for my kids or whatever. Usually it's not marketing material, but it was to his daughter. And it was diapers, baby formula. It was only like baby stuff. And he calls Target irate. What in like the heck are you sending this to my teenage daughter? I want to be off your list. Take me off your list, whatever. 30 days later, he calls Target again. He goes, how did you know? She was pregnant. He didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Because Target was smart enough. They were tracking this information when someone would come in and shop. They would track different levels of engagement. Brought prenatals. If you bought hair pills, your buying patterns would tell you, oh, this person, and they realized how valuable that was, because they're like, in this phase, like, we don't need them to buy right away. But if we can like get into their world and get connected with them, if you get a new mom, think of how much revenue that's worth to Target over the years. If you're buying all your stuff there, your car seats, your formula, your like clothes, all of that. So it was really valuable. Now, Target got smart about it. They didn't stop doing this, but what they started doing was they would add in a coupon for like a barbecue or something like it, because people don't like feeling like they are being marketed to at that level of like, oh, like, what, you're reading my mail, you know exactly where I'm at. So they tried to kind of shroud it a little bit. Well, I think the moral of the story is, like, again, the biggest and best players are doing this. You need to be doing it too. It doesn't have to be that complicated. And you can do it in a way too that doesn't feel creepy. Like, you can do it in a way that actually is connected and serving your customer, unlike what happened with that story.
You know, it's interesting because they collect data. They understand who their customer is, right? Like, I have a friend right now who they're like, we have a product that's just starting to lift off, right? And they're going to start with a new flavor or two. I'm like, why? Why start with a new flavor if you have not even built a customer database and figure out what people want? You basically, the whole concept of focus on one thing until successful, right? I mean, build something strong and then go into watching your customer data. What do they click on? Like, you could say, you know, we're thinking about adding a mango flavor here. If nobody clicks on mango flavor, don't do anything. But you have all the data there that you can actually start to pinpoint, right? Like, the thing about Target, which is great, is because they knew the lifetime value of that customer is X. So if somebody is in prenatal, they're going to buy a bunch of crap before the time that child is 13 years old. But that's a long pipeline of nurturement, of nurturing. Yeah. Now, when you have a new product, let's say like a ranch dressing or, sauce that you're going to put on something, and you have Hidden Valley Ranch, and all of a sudden Hidden Valley Ranch is 2 months old and 3 months old. And then it's like, oh, we're just going to start with Hidden Valley Mango, Hidden Valley Peanut, Hidden Valley everything. And everyone's like, what's going on here? Like, who are you serving? And if they had 100,000 customers and they put 2 emails out and said, hey, do you like peanuts? And only one person responded yes, before they go down the path of creating a peanut mango dressing, and that person's only bought 1 jar versus the people who are buying 30 jars over that same time period, you're going to weight the person who has 30 purchases underneath their belt versus a single-time buyer. And that's the thing, is we're not watching for those kind of metrics. And that's why I think when people want to step into this digital space, right? Website, social, PR, some type of ad spends. Once they step into that space, you're just poking that little mountaintop out of the icy waters. And at that point, you got to cap it and put a CRM tool right on top of it, because otherwise, you're just aggregating. You're aggregating a community. You're collecting people, but you're not putting them anywhere to sort and to understand them. And I think that's one of the most important parts, is that if I were to go back to the beginning of my days, I would make sure every time I had a website, an Instagram account, that I would have some type of collection tool running high value offers that bring me information about my audience, so I can make better decisions as a business owner to serve them the things that they want, not the things I think they need, right? And so on one side, it's great, because now if someone told me, like, I wish I met you 20 years ago, and you're like, Brady, if you have a CRM tool now, your company is going to be worth X in 20 years.
Well, yeah, because what's that cost you over the last 20? I was talking with my mom yesterday. She got voted to the board at the local rodeo. They in Central Oregon. They host this rodeo every year. She works at the little quilt shop downtown and is highly involved with the rodeo. Dad is also involved in that, does all the construction work. 2 years ago, was a year or two ago, one of the bulls got out in the middle of the rodeo, like jumped the fence. His name was Party Bus. Like, you can find it on TikTok, whatever. Like, look up Party Bus Rodeo, you'll see it. He ends up running through the whole rodeo area, right? He becomes kind of somewhat famous. And this rodeo is well known. It's like known as the biggest little rodeo in the world. But they're super involved in this rodeo. They sell a ton of merch throughout the year, and they put my mom in charge of selling the merchandise. And they just had like the normal kind of like pop-up shop style of merch. And I think the most they had ever done, she said, was like around $20,000 or so in total merch over the course of just a little less than a week. And this last year, same thing. If you were to look at, okay, hey, what's the kind of business we're trying to build? How are we going to optimize and make sure that we get as much attention as possible and we move as much merchandise as possible? Well, there's some very like basic things just in standard retail that you're going to want to do. One, you're going to want to display what's for sale. You want to make it easy for people to see. You want to make it easy for people to engage. So leading up to this last rodeo, my dad and mom worked on this project and ended up hiring a team to where they converted this old hamburger stand into the merch booth. Dude, you want to know how much they did in revenue? More than they had done before. They did $187,000 in sales, normally max $20K. And some of that was inventory they've been sitting on for 3 years.
Wow.
When you go back and you look at how long, because this rodeo has been in existence for over 50 years now, how much it's cost them to not have that merch booth set up the way that it should have been. It's the exact same thing as not having the systems in your business to be able to engage your customers, find out what they want, and honestly, even just move the inventory that you already have. Like,
well, that's the question. Like, how much is it worth to your business? I mean, you don't even know the number. That's, I think, the part. Like, even my wife and I were out at dinner last night, and she's like, Brady, she's like, I have a tough time understanding CRM for my business, which I'm a graphic designer, and I make websites for people. I'm like, do you ever recommend to your customers that they need this? And she's like, I just don't know what to say. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, if you would have been selling them since day one websites and you were just part of the growth of that company and you knew what they were, how much money did you leave behind? And she looks at me and she says, it's not a fair question.
100%.
I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm like, so let's look at what you could have, like, let's look at your mom, like in that position, right? Like, how much money did they lose from not having her in the last 10 years, right? If they did
160 grand a year.
Yeah, just by not knowing.
That's the difference between 20 and 186. $166,000 a year for the last 10 years. You're talking, almost $2 million
So
for not having.
So let's say that we have a website, we have Instagram, and we are paying someone for PR. Like on average, that's $7,000 a month for someone to manage all that stuff in 3 different places, right?
Yep.
And you're not making any true ROI on it. That's a full-on problem, right? Like that means that you have months and months and months and months stacking up that you're not making any money because you don't know where that energy, what I call traffic, is going, and you're not doing anything with it. So by not hiring someone who knows what they're doing with CRMs or customer acquisition, how to run real well-made offers that are attractive to your audiences, you are losing money every single month. And I think people don't want to look at that problem, and that makes it a lot easier for them to avoid the problem than to decide, like, how much have I really been losing and how long can I keep this up? And I think it's funny because we're talking about people who want to buy businesses, right? Someone who is going to come in and find something that they're going to want to buy, they're going to look at your products. And if you don't have a CRM system or a customer management system, they're going to pay you what your company is worth, and they're going to put that in, and they're going to grow your sales immediately. They're going to do something, and they'll probably replace you, right? They're probably going to move you out of the way because
if they even buy it, because it may not even get to the deal table, right? I mean, you look at the music industry is that way now, where
let's
you don't already have a following, if you don't already have an audience.
Well, I mean, let's look at that, right? Music, whatever. Like, I would prefer if you and I were to go into business today to buy businesses, I would say let's look for businesses that don't have CRMs, that are a little bit bleeding right now, and let's buy them pennies on the dollar, and let's turn it around and make some true money. And I'm just not into that business. I mean, I'd rather show people the way than buy them out of the way. You know what I mean? And take over their jobs. But that's a completely true mining position. Like, if you want to go mining businesses that don't have them and want to turn, like I was telling you earlier on the call, like this guy does this like sales, they reposition people's sales companies and their sales teams to be profitable and to like get 10, 20, 30 more percent. That's just by adding or fixing their CRM tools. People running Salesforce that have no idea what they're doing. You know what I mean? They're like, well, this is how we do it. Well, this is how it should be done. And then next thing you know, they just jump sales overnight. So you can hire a company to come in and do it for you. You can be acquired and walk out the door and have someone make more money than you. It's really interesting to me that, you know, like, how long will you go on losing money? You know, like, I look at the music industry and I know where you're going. For me, is like, there's so much opportunity in me to feel nurtured as a guest of a musician. And fandom, I think, is so wildly broken and will be, because people are spending $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for a ticket. I saw a meme the other day. I was like, I forgot what it was to like be dating somebody who likes Beyonce. You know, like $4,000 tickets for a date night is like, or you don't get a date. You know.
Well, yeah, and for, you know, the point I was making there with the musicians is it's an expectation, it's a requirement now. You have to have an audience. If you don't have an audience, you're not getting a deal. So that's the equivalent of, in business, like, you have to have a list, you have to have a Rolodex, you have to have, and usually that's stored in some kind of CRM. At Nordstrom, it was our personal book. At restaurant, it might be something else, but you've got to have that list of customers and that data on those customers. That's the thing that in the new economy makes your business and brand valuable, with like real equitable value, is like the people. It is the list. I don't know if you saw the show Arrested Development. You know, the grandson, George Michael, you know, he's working the banana stand selling frozen bananas on Balboa Island down in Orange County. And his grandpa's like, there's money in the banana stand. And George Michael gets fed up with, you know, running the banana stand because his grandpa's in prison or whatever. And he's like, I know what I'll do. I was like, I'll burn it down. I'll collect the insurance money. And he burns it down. He's like, I finally don't have to deal with this thing anymore. And he goes to prison to visit Grandpa. He goes, Grandpa, you'd be so proud of me. I normally don't do this stuff, but, you know, I collected the insurance check. You know, it was $200,000 or whatever it was. You know, I burned down the banana stand. He's like, what are you He's like, you dummy, there was money. There was literally money lined in the walls of the banana stand. And it's the same thing in our business where like the latent value, the cash is there in the business, especially like if you've done any sort of good job with PR and creating a good brand and an experience that people like, whether it's a restaurant or a consumer product. You've done the hard work already. Like there's money in the banana stand, like there's money in the business. Like, but unless you actually, the only way to capture that is by actually having a CRM, having a system somewhere where that information lives, that now you can do something with it. You can actually reach out to customers and let them know anniversary sales coming, or you can send an email blast, or you can invite engagement. Like if you don't have it, then of course, yeah, you're leaving money on the table. You might be doing well enough to drive a profit because your ads and your other strategies are working, but the question is like, how much money are you leaving on the table?
Well, let's go back.
Probably a whole heck of a lot.
And information is money, right? I mean, think about it like, hey, Gabe, I want to do a new flavor for our sauce company. And you're like, what? What do you think? And I'm like, I want to do crispy mango party time. You're like, crispy mango party time. That sounds fun. That's a great idea. We could kill it with crispy party mango time. So I'm like, all right. You're like, all right, here, do this. Every time we send out an email, let's put something in the email, embed something in the email to see if we can get people clicking on the word mango. And let's see who's clicking. And let's do that for 9 months. Because I have our finance team who says crispy mango party time is a bad idea right now, guys. So we have to prove it to them because we think crispy mango party time is a fun time. And you're like, cool, let's do it. So we embed like some kind of like mango recipe one time, where mangoes come from, see if people are actually, clicking on mangoes, and then who is clicking on mangoes. And then all of a sudden we pick 5 out of those 30 people that clicked in the last 9 months on the word mango. 5 of them actually bought our product 30 times. And we pick up the phone and we call them like, hey, we're thinking about doing crispy mango party time. Would you buy it? And they say, that sounds so gross.
Crisco, we'll sell it to Crisco.
They're like, it sounds so gross. And you're like, well, I'm glad we didn't invest all that time because we just spent all of our time focused on selling the number one product seller that we have.
Dude, that's how I came up with the cover to this, my book, which was that exact process. Because I've got obviously a CRM. And we came up with a dozen versions of this cover. Because and this is actually even before I finished writing the book. I had the original draft of it done, but I wanted it before I put all the extra time, which ended up being another 6 months of rewriting, editing, layout, all of that. I wanted to see, like, one, is this an idea worth pursuing? Like, would people pay for this idea? And if they would, one, like what's going to be the thing that's going to catch their eye is going to be the cover. So like, let's get the cover figured out. So designed 12 different versions of the cover, ran ads and it was just a picture of the cover, and ran that out to my list to same exact thing to see like what would people click on. But then we wanted to take it a step further, and you could do this with physical product, with pre-order, with anything. We actually just ran a big pre-order campaign for a water bottle company.
Yep.
Where, okay, can we actually get people to put in their credit card information based on this
cover,
this book, the title, the cover, the pre-order of the bottle, the whatever. And we were able to do that. And that told us, okay, like that's why we ended up with the yellow cover that we did, because we actually vetted the idea. We validated the idea with actual sales, delivered the first draft to those people that purchased that, and said like, hey, we're gonna, you got this at a discount rate. You get the draft, and then you'll get the final version as it comes out, and you get these other bonuses and things too. But we vetted the idea, and the only reason I was able to do that is because we had the data. I had someone to send that to get that feedback from, because otherwise I would have been shooting in the dark.
So important.
Like hopefully it works. Hopefully, and I'll spend the next 12. I'll spend this year like putting this book together, and maybe it was a good use of time. Hopefully, but.
Well, let's look. I mean, I love that. I mean, that's a great use case, man. Like it's great to have that information from your people and to have the ability to do that. Without it, you're just shooting in the dark. Now, that's a whole different, how much money are you going to waste in the next 2 years not having data to back it up? But let's flip the script a little bit, right? Let's say that
Yeah.
We've talked about this layer. So you've got your business for foundation underneath the surface, your web, everything before you go digital. Then you go digital, and let's say that, I like this one graph that I saw with the sales, and it's an L-shaped graph, and you've got 4 lines that are going from 0 up to 500 over the course of 5 years. Mm-hmm. And each one is better than the other. So sales, the first line is sales that probably did 100,000. The second line goes to 300,000. The next sale goes to 500,000. The next line goes up to 1 million, right? Now, if you take back the very starting point, all of those different same threads of that business that perform differently, and you start off at the beginning,
yep.
All right, let's go 6 months down the road. And you basically put a line, a dot on each one. One is going to end up at 100,000, one at 300, one at 500, one at 1 million, right? But down here at the 6-month mark, they're all super close to together.
They're pretty close. Yeah, there's not not a lot of separation.
So what's the
lot easier to jump paths at the 6-month mark than it is later.
Yeah. So that's the point, is if you can truncate some of this loss at the beginning, you're going to avoid bigger losses in the distance. And I think that's kind of the part. So let's say that you get your website, you get your Instagram, and those lines I'm talking about are website, Instagram, PR, and ads, right? And we want to put a CRM tool at the beginning of that system. And let's say that you did that and you played by the rules. Now you've got what we call an acquisition system, right? Before you just had a digital unit. You had 3 individual units or 4 different digital things and channels that were creating traffic, but there was no acquisition system. So let's say that you tie it all together with a CRM tool, which I believe could be like Salesforce, HubSpot, High Level, blah, 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 right? There's a bunch of them out there. Now you've truly got an acquisition system. Now you've got 3 horsemen that are pushing all of this traffic into a tool that can sort, manage, and relate to them. But then you jump into this concept of nurturing and engagement. And how do you build trust using that acquisition system? How do you build insights with that acquisition system? That's where these, CRMs kind of there's so much difference between all of them. And I think that's maybe why the marketplace has made it such an unsexy word, because it's like, do you want QuickBooks or do you want Xero or do you want Sage, or, you know what I mean? You're like, they all sound boring to me. But would we run a business without them? Back to spreadsheets and paying 5 people to do something that a computer can do in minutes, And
right.
So let's just say that you're getting rewarded. And I think this is where, one, you've mastered this traffic system with the CRM tool. Now you got things kind of organized. You got let's call it your books together of customers, right? Mm-hmm. And then you get into this acquisition system. This next layer is where you really start to master how you communicate, how you segment, how you take insights, how you sell, how you scale, right? You're starting to learn it's not about the people that are just going to buy. It's like, what are they interested in? What do they want? Where do they want to go? What problems does your product in their hands create? For me, like, I got a buddy who has this like sauce company, right? Well, the sauce goes on pizza. My next logical thing would be, maybe we sell them pizza, because if they have the sauce for the pizza, they're probably going to want pizza next, right? And if they trust you on the sauce, they're probably going to trust you on the pizza. Or do you just make them a red sauce versus making them the dough and the pizza and the thing, and team up with other pizza companies who could be influencers for you, right? So how do you build this acquisition system where all of this energy and all these influencers and affiliate partners are all pouring into it, and you have it all managed, organized? On the lower level, that's impossible. Like, there's no way to have all these systems in one place doing one sync item. So what what do you see there as kind of like the mastery of that system? Like, what do you like to see there?
It's real simple, and it's like one of those things that how's the quote go? I would have written a shorter letter, but I didn't have enough time. It's really hard to build a simple system. It's literally taken me 19 years to understand the components of an acquisition system. But if you think of it like a human body, we have our cardiovascular, our nervous system, our skeletal system, right? They all make up our human body. Acquisition system, which is essentially how do you take strangers and get them to pay you money to be a customer or a client. That's all an acquisition system is. How does the things that are needed to do that. There's 5 pieces, essentially 5 systems that make up of the overall acquisition system, and it has 2 jobs. Job 1, you've got to capture attention. Can you get in front of the right people in the marketplace who would want your pizza sauce? Can we get in front of people that love pizza and love to put stuff on their pizza? Can we convert attention? That's the second piece. So capture attention, convert. So once we have someone's attention, it's like, great, I've got your attention. Now, can I hold your attention long enough and persuade you to whip out your credit card and buy my sauce, reserve a table, book an event?
Buy a book, et cetera.
Acquisition system does 2 things. Yeah, buy a book, hire my agency, you name it. There are 5 systems that you need in order to do those 2 jobs. There's 2 on the capture side. So your traffic system, which essentially that's just how do you get eyeballs? How do I get in front of the right people? Then you have your lead gen system, which is once I have eyeballs, how do I get people to actually give me their contact information? How do I get people to raise their hand? At Nordstrom, again, I was getting into our personal book. You show up to the website, hey, put in your email, get 15% off. It's like those would be lead gen systems. Then once we have leads, then we flip over to the other side. There's 3 systems to convert that attention. The first is your engagement system, has 1 job. Every system only has 1 job. The engagement system's job is to get conversations, to generate engagement in conversations. Because if it doesn't matter if we have 1 million leads in our CRM, if none of them are conversing or engaging with us, it doesn't matter. If they're not DMing us on social or in chat or calling us, it doesn't matter. So the engagement system has 1 job to get people into conversation. Then there's the nurture system. Again, just has 1 job. Its only job is to keep your brand top of mind in the mind of the consumer. So if you can stay in front of them, and part of Nordstrom's nurture system was they said, hey, every time, Gabriel, you're done with your shift, you got to write 5 thank you notes, send it to people in your personal book. That was part of their nurture system, because every time I set that out, someone may not have come in and buy because of my thank you note, but I'm going to be top of mind. Nordstrom's going to be top of mind. And then the last one is your sales system. Once you're in conversation, how do you actually get someone to hire you, buy your product, reserve a table, you name it. So those are the 5. That's all you need. Like if you're crystal clear, like if we go back to the beginning of like laying that foundation, I'm like, okay, I know I need an acquisition system. My acquisition system has 2 jobs: capture attention, convert attention. And there's 5 systems that make up that whole thing. Traffic system gets eyeballs. Lead gen system gets those eyeballs to raise their hand. Engagement system gets, once people raise their hand, actually into conversation. Nurture system keeps me top of mind and my brand at the forefront of their mind. And my sales system is the thing that actually finally takes them across the finish line to give over their credit card. If you have something in every single one of those and it's working well, your business is cranking.
Yeah, and I think when I relate back to the hospitality industry in which I spent so much time, like people believe that all those things exist inside the framework and like when they get to the restaurant, right? Well, we do engagement, we nurture them, but they're all in sight. Like, like we can touch them, we can serve them food, or we can give them a cocktail. But I think,
you know who that works for? That works if you're in downtown Nashville, if you're at Tootsies on Broadway. Tootsies doesn't need to do, there are some businesses that probably don't need to do CRM, don't need to do social media. Your Tootsies on Broadway, like you have so much foot traffic, like your traffic system is the fact that you're paying that rent on Broadway. But if you're like the Hole in Wall, or you're the boutique, or you're not
Tootsies number 2, Tootsies 3, Tootsies 4. They're gonna
100%. Yeah, anyone that's not on Broadway, the one that's in the airport,
yep.
The one that's in that's in B&A, like they got to be doing engagement because you've got so many other options. And like why, like the reason you go to Tootsies on Broadway is a different reason than why you go to Tootsies in B&A.
Let's paint the picture for Tootsies Airport, right?
Yeah.
You go from Broadway to Airport, and you've got an engagement person who literally sits on the clock 40 hours a week, right? And what they're looking for is singled out people doing, let's say they work for $700 a month or $700, a month for the Tootsies Airport location. Every time somebody posts that they're traveling, she's like, oh my gosh, Gabe, like, looks like you travel all the time and you follow us Tootsies downtown. Have you stopped at our airport location? Love to have you. Here's 10%. All they do is go and look for travelers who follow the main location, because I'm sure that big location downtown has a bunch of followers.
Totally. And you can catch it. You can literally catch people on the way in, right? Because like if I were consulting with Tootsies, I'd be like, okay, Nashville, other than Vegas, probably more bachelor and bachelorette parties than anywhere else, right? I would do whatever I could to capture any bachelorette or bachelor party traffic coming in to Nashville that's going to walk past that Tootsies. Like, could we give them a free drink coupon? Could we do something like, hey, scan this QR code. If you follow and tag us on social, when you show up at Tootsies downtown, you're going to get a free drink. Boom. All of a sudden now you've got like all this social engagement.
Or when people are sitting at the downtown location and they're like, hey, how's it going? You guys look so fun on a great day you're having. Who's getting married? Oh, I'm getting married. Oh, boo. What do you guys want to drink? Oh, by the way, you guys aren't from town, right? They're like, no, we're all from so-and-so. Cool. Well, I got a good deal for you. I'll tell you later. Comes back to the table later after the thing. It's like, hey, if anybody's flying out, we got a deal. All you got to do is scan this. We're going to send you a little QR code to your DM. So you just have to scan this and DM us. We'll flip back this to you. And then as soon as you get to the airport, just throw that thing and you get like 30% off your drink. Whatever cocktail you want. Or buy one on us, whatever. You just BOGO them. Like, boom, now you just generated revenue and traffic for a new location that you haven't even like built out yet. So it works both ways. And now you've got them in a system that bachelorette party, Boston, bachelorette party, Austin. And then you're like, oh, wow, after 3 years, we have quite a large contingency of people in Austin. Well, why don't we do Tootsies Austin?
You're welcome. This advice is free. This is my,
But this is like where people like miss what the importance of having an acquisition system can do for you. So I think we're layered it up, right? So everybody believes that they have to have their brick and mortar, which is the most important part. Then you go ground level. Right when you get into breaking ground on digital, you have to think about the importance of making a decision without a CRM tool to manage your traffic. If you decide to go against it, you're going to create a gap. And it's just a matter of how long is that gap going to cost you money. If you do for it, then you chose the 4 horsemen. And the 4th horseman is a CRM tool that goes in cohorts with your website, your Instagram, and your traffic and PR, right? So you've agreed to do the 4 horsemen of conversion. Now you've got an acquisition system. You master that. Then what happens above that? You've got all this like energy and you've got all this customer data. If you really wanted to just dump gas on the fire, that's when you start doing ad spend. I've got all these people over here who love Mango Crispy Chicken Party. I've got all these people who love Tootsies Austin. I got all these people with all these data points. I'm going to go out and I'm going to spend ads just on those best customers that do react and engage with my brand. And next, my ad spends are dumping all those new people that we're targeting into my system as well. So I make more money, new money, right? Like that's the scaling layer. That's the layer of like getting after acquisition. So you got the first layer, which is basically ground level pre-digital. Then you got the digital level. Then you got the conversion level. Then you got the acquisition level. And now you got scaling level because you know what's working and how to bring that money back. Target your money. Doing ad spend at the beginning before a CRM tool just creates a gap for loss.
If you like lighting money on fire, it could be like a lot of things. You might get lucky, but you're most likely going to light money on fire. We've got a client right now who's done just about 8 million with his kind of like high ticket offer, and he speaks on stages and works in the kind of investing space. And now that he's gone through all the tranches of all the stuff we talked about, planning the business that he wants to build, building the list, constantly nurturing that list. He does a lot through email, some through social, mostly through email. Again, you can kind of pick your channels where you're going to do engagement based on where your customers are. But now that he's done that, he's like, now he's ready to hit scale. So now is when, which is so funny because there's so many people that are trying to compete with him that started with ads that have fizzled out years ago. And now it's so much easier for us to jump in and help him. And we have the blueprint to take him from 8 million to 80, where it's like, okay, great. And now we've removed so many of the variables too of like, same thing like I did with the book. Do people even want this thing? If so, if we know the kind of person that wants it, the problem that it solves, or the desire that it fills, the experience we want to create, now great. Now we've scoped down our risk. Like our risk, if we did ads at the beginning, would have been wide open. Been so many things that we would have had to have tested and that could cause it to work or not work. Now it's down to just like, okay, can we get the ad in front of the right person with the right message? Because if we can, we already know it's going to sell because it's already sold, 8 million. And that's when you get that. That's when it gets really fun into that scaling layer with things like ads. Before then, I know we get to the next level where it's that kind of long-term Warren Buffett style of growth with, things like SEO and content. But we talked about this last week, right? The idea of sequence over strategy. These strategies are all important, but here's where you're starting to see sequence trumps strategy. Because if you do the right strategy in the wrong order, it is the wrong strategy. Because if you do ads up front, like, you're likely to lose your shirt. Do it in the right order and you're going to crush.
So I basically have great conversation with a guy who's about to start a new company, right? Let's say they're raising a couple million and they're going to have this really cool backyard tool that everybody loves to entertain, right? Everyone loves to eat, right? So the goal there was, all right, what is the strategy? I want to hit the market so hard with influencers and ad spend that we own the market overnight. And I'm like, well, what about CRM tool? What about website? Microsite. I don't need a splash page. I don't really care about a website. CRM tool? Absolutely. Wouldn't even consider this without it. Because they know they're going to make an incredible effort and investment up front. And that CRM tool is going to trump out social media, and it's going to trump out website, because they know they can basically just they can leapfrog a little bit. Now that's super advanced. That's people who have, bought and sold companies, and they understand like the sometimes the frameworks. Now, do I think it's the greatest strategy? Not really. Do I think there's a framework there to buffer and kind of like encapsulate with some better theories and logic? Absolutely. So we sent a proposal for it. Now, I think that is a very interesting, but I think when you get to that scaling layer, again, it's what you're saying. Sales, you've identified what works, right? And then you're basically saying paid ads at the right time to the right and retargeting the perfect audience can just increase your business to the point where you've got everything settled and it's a machine. And now you're just dumping gasoline on top of the fire. And you're like, watch our business, just because it's just about customer acquisition cost. As long as your customer acquisition cost, if you're making $10 in profit on your product, and as long as you're selling or your advertising is $7, I'll take $3 if it's not denting my system. If it doesn't make me work anymore, all I'm doing is just basically like every time I spend $7, I make $3. There's nothing wrong with that ratio. Now, when I'm spending 10 and I'm basically, cost me 10, then that's a little bit of a hard swallow. But that's when you know what works. And that's when scaling comes in really play. And the last one after that, I think, is long-term growth. And I know you guys do some stuff with SEO, and it's always been important to you and you guys' agency and stuff. But I always thought like SEO is important to make sure that you do this all up front. And it's one of the biggest expenses when you start your website, that you got to have SEO. And tomorrow I realized that SEO doesn't matter if there's no way to understand what your acquisition system looks like, who you're targeting, what kind of traffic you're getting, what kind of offers are on the site, what kind of offers are automated, what's going to react. Like, what is SEO truly, Gabe? You know what I mean? Like, but I think that's the long-term growth layer. Like, that's where growth is, where you want to put at the very end. After you've mastered all these other layers, SEO is at the top. Because you've made so much money that you're like, the last thing to really do to market dominance is to own every single backlink and opportunity to capture everyone searching
100%.
your keywords.
And that's where starting with the end in mind, I think, is critical, because even though it's like at the top of the ladder, it's that long-term growth layer. It's kind of like the Chinese proverb of planting a tree. When's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the next best time? Today. Because SEO does take a little bit longer. I always think of SEO like the Warren Buffett of investing. If you imagine you had a punch card and you could only pick 20 stocks in your lifetime, that's like Warren Buffett, right? Like if you could only, so every time you went and bought a different stock, like you're punching that card, you would want to know, okay, well, what are the Warren Buffett's picking early on? He's not making big money overnight. He's not, investing in crypto or day trading like these penny stocks. He's buying, solid American-based companies that make money over time, right? And SEO is kind of the same thing, where if you know up front, hey, we're going to plan for market dominance. It depends on where you're at, but for most, it could make and probably does make sense to start at least seeding some of that ground for SEO, but you have to understand, like, you're not going to get that return until you're at that long-term growth layer. And so that's where, again, it depends upon budgets and scope and resources that you have. Because I see it on both sides where people are like, oh, like now we're ready to do SEO. It's like, okay, well, we get a lot of ground to catch up, and you can do anything with additional budget, but there's a time component with SEO too that's super, super important. But if you know that's going to be part of the strategy, it's like, okay, well, let's at least ease into it while we're building. And then when we hit that long-term growth layer, that's when we're going to, hammer and go all in. And we've done that and seen that with some companies, this nutritionist who works with dietitians all across the U.S. that went from near nothing to 50,000 searches a month. It would be like, if your restaurant were a hole in the wall down a back alley, like no one ever saw your stuff, and then all of a sudden you were just like on prime real estate and had that, Broadway, downtown Nashville foot traffic kind of overnight, because we're able to help establish some of that market dominance. But yeah, I think you laid out a really incredible progression. Again, going back to like the original question of the pod, which was, if you were to start over, what would it be? And there's some things around, okay, what do we do first, kind of below ground level, answering those questions. What's the problem we're trying to solve? What's the kind of business we want to build? Smooth is slow is fast. Like, do some thinking first before you get started. And then what was it? It was that kind of digital concierge at ground level. So, all right, website, all the core stuff that we need to get started. Then we're getting into CRM, social media, PR, building that acquisition system that's really key, so we know how to capture and convert attention. Then we can start scaling with ads, and then we can really like own and dominate the market with SEO, with brand, with organic authority, with like true PR, and then putting these things in the right order to help you get there the fastest. I freaking love it.
I think you said something I want to go back to it real quick, is that if you were a small mom and pop shop, right? And let's just say for the hospitality industry, let's say you win an extremely coveted award, like a Michelin or a James Beard award or Eater's top thing in the city award, right? You now have a ton of traffic, right? And if your restaurant is not ready, is not set up, and these people all come and go, and you have no way to reach out to them in the future, communicate that you have events or parties, it's going to be called what they call a flash in the pan. And you're going to see peaks and valleys. And the whole reason that this whole business model exists and this accelerator ladder is that I want to avoid peaks and ladders. And I want to create something of value that I can continually to precisely put investment into with results that we can track. And it's like, I don't have to track it because other people know how CRM works. Someone's like, well, if it was that important, why is it we have it? I'm like, I don't know. Why is there people for $10 an hour on Upwork every single day who are CRM people who like, they just like to do that because they don't like work? I mean, there's people out there that aren't expensive. Now, going and hiring a director of marketing for $100,000 who doesn't really know anything about CRMs and how to implement them into your business is a waste of money. And to really scale back into this, I would say things that, to always look out for is when you hire on web, when you hire on social media people, when you hire on PR teams, if they say they're going to promise you traffic and they're going to do cool stuff that gets you attention, and they do not mention the word CRM to you or some kind of tool that's going to manage and nurture and grow that energy or that traffic into cash, run away. Yeah, don't stick around. Yeah, that you're just hiring somebody who can do some work, right? That's pencil pushing. So going back, I'll just recap this real quick. If we were to start over, knowing what we know today, and I was going from ideation to market dominance, my first thing would be the pre-digital foundation is your brick and mortar. It's the stuff that goes in the ground. It's your restaurant. It's your retail shop. It's your winery, your distillery. It's the box that you need to create the thing that you sell or the problem you solve. Your service box underneath the ground. I say it's underneath the ground because nobody knows you're there unless they stop by your front door and fall in that manhole. So I say that's underground. Then the next one up is your digital layer. This is when you peak your little like snow-capped iceberg out of the waters, and you say, we have a website, we have Instagram, we have social media, we have PR, we've got some kind of ad spend, we're creating traffic, right? And we're putting money into this. That's the digital, we call them the four horsemen, right? You've got PR, which is some kind of traffic, website, and social media. If you have three horsemen and the fourth horseman is a CRM tool, you'll never, ever get to acquisitions layer unless you focus on having that fourth horseman in play. So let's say that you get to that next level, which is the acquisition layer. That's where you really start to learn about your customers. You really start to dial in on nurturing, engagement, how to convert every single piece of traffic, figure out what they're there for, why they want it, provide them offers, and really kind of start to scale your business. So that's where acquisition and scaling starts to see the movement. The layer above that is your scaling layer. And scaling is when you identify what works. You know paid ads can work because you know the audiences, you know your people, you know what they're going to buy, and then you know you can actually see profits from every single ad that you run. You do that prematurely, out of sequence, you lose that right. Same with SEO. If you get past and master that scaling layer, you get to that long-term growth layer, that's where your word of mouth and your organic PR and your SEO investments will triple and quadruple back investments. Like that is where it's supposed to be, is when you master all these layers going up. So I just wanted to kind of recap what that is and what it looks like to get into this ladder, because it's large. We haven't even talked about sales people. You know what I mean?
No, I think it's a pretty solid ladder. Like you said, go from ideation to dominance. And the good news about it is, regardless of how long you've been in the game, it has nothing to do with time. It has all to do about the foundation that you've laid and what rungs you have in place. So whether you've been in business for 10 years or 2 years, you can still climb the ladder as quickly as you want. But let's ratchet down to kind of where maybe you're at, and then climb from there. So I think you gave folks a pretty incredible pretty incredible ladder and like path to follow here. I dig it.
Yeah, and I think I would probably close it up for me on this, that when you do your underground foundation, which is the below ground level, which is your restaurant, your retail, your box, right? Where you make your thing or serve your service. That's where your culture, identity, and all that time and energy. A lot of people spend a ton of time and investment there. Just equally mirror that when you go digital. Mm-hmm. Pull that culture, that engagement, really, really make that so unique, and add a CRM tool. If you do that, your business is going to go up constantly versus sideways when you take your eyes off it for a minute.
Up, not sideways. Let's do that. Let's do that.
Up, not sideways. Yeah, keep your eyes on the business when it's needed.
I think that's the pod.
So,
all right, well, we'll see y'all on the next one.